One. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this class in Nonprofit Program Planning, Design, Evaluation. Today, we're really fortunate to have Brian Nelson with us. He is the chair of the Maui Rescue Mission, and he's just got such a fantastic story to tell you. And through this story, I'd like you to really keep your eyes open, your heart open, your spirit receptive to what God may be saying to you, and write these things down as you're hearing this interview. If anything piques your interest, makes you stop and wonder, write that down. We'll be coming back to that. Okay, Brian, so welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey with rescue missions in particular? I think that'll help the students have a good grounding of where we're going here.
Okay, yes, thank you, Charlie. So back in 1984, I was approached by the chairman of the board of the Rescue Mission in San Diego. And he interviewed me and then eventually hired me to design the new rescue mission wherever and whatever it was going to be. He didn't have a plan, he didn't have anything. And so he interviewed me and said, "We want you." And I had never even stepped foot in the rescue mission, never been there. So I went around Southern California, looked at rescue missions, what was current at that time, and that was about the time, 1980s, when rescue missions started doing recovery programs and educational programs and transitional programs. And so I came back to Santa Barbara and designed the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission and Bethel House, which is the Women and Children's Center next door. So that was the beginning of my journey in rescue ministries. As soon as they signed my contract, they asked me to be on the board of directors. And I said, okay. Sitting on the board of directors for 10 years. We built the rescue mission. We used the homeless to actually do a lot of the labor. They got paid. They were our construction crew. They got the first beds at the old 16 beds at an engineer's hotel next to railroad tracks. And so they got the first 16 beds as the construction crew, and the rest of the people slept on mats and on the floor. And so we were actually training the homeless and job training while we built the rescue mission. So that was a new concept that I had never seen done in rescue ministries that I had visited around Southern California.
Hey, I got a question for you, Brian, if I can interrupt. One question is that, as you had the folks that were involved in the construction and all, whose idea was that? Was that an organic thing that popped up? Is that something you just observed? Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Our executive director was named Chuck Pope. His son was a contractor. And the two of them came up with the idea, let's use the homeless people that want vocational training, whether it's framing or how to pull wires or whatever it is, let's involve them. So it was part of the program from day one. So
perfect, thank you.
So we built the rescue mission first, and then we built Bethel House, and the 12 or 13 guys that were still on the crew got the new beds in the new facility, and they got to build and now they were journeymen, so they got to help build the Bethel House next door. So that was the first step toward my seeing what rescue mission was, what was involved in rescue missions. We included a learning center in the new building. We included vocational training, a big shop so that we could train people to work with their hands. We added a bicycle repair program for the men so they could keep their hands busy at night. When they had some free time, what do you do other than sit on the couch and watch TV? Well, the bicycle shop became a huge hit, and they could tear it completely apart, rebuild it, repaint it if it needed painting, and they couldn't keep the first bike. They had to give it away. So we had a list of people in the community that needed bicycles. hearing me.
Still with me?
I think we're back.
I think we're back. Sorry
My-
about that, everyone.
Yeah, sorry, my connection is unstable. I live in a rural area on a ranch, and it becomes unstable every now and then, so we may be interrupted. So that was my beginning in rescue ministries.
Did you have any prior understanding of rescue missions prior to that first call?
No, I had nothing. I had never even been down to the rescue mission. To me, the rescue mission was the winos. That's what we called the World War II vets, laying on the sidewalk, waiting for the 3 hots and a cot, 3 hot meals and a cot at night. And they were laying on the main street of Santa Barbara, waiting for, or sitting or laying down, waiting for the next meal, and then a cot at night. So that was what the rescue mission was when we started. And eventually, when we built out the rescue mission Bethel House, we had 100 overnight beds, emergency beds, 40 men's recovery beds, and 40 women and children recovery beds.
So since then, how many missions have you done design work for?
Well, I'll give you a little piece in between. So 10
Okay.
years after the new mission was built, we had gone from a $120,000 2-employee mission in the old Engineers Hotel to $1.2 million annual budget. The beds were all full in both facilities, 24 employees. And our executive director that we hired to replace the previous one, Matt McGill, he was a pastor, not so much an administrator. So after 10 years and all this happening with the expansion, I was very frustrated as the chairman of the board because we had a line item budget, and I would say, are we on budget? Where's our income compared to last year? Where's our expenditures compared to last year? And his answer was, we have money in the bank, or we don't have money in the bank. And so this kept happening. And finally, as chairman, I said, okay, I'm going to go write a job description for the business administrator, the director. Went home that night and started writing. Our board meeting got over 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I worked till 2 in the morning in my home office, writing a job description for the business administrator, degree in accounting, background, a degree in business, background in accounting, all those type of qualifications. So I got up to go to bed at 2 in the morning. And as I was, I printed out the job description, put it on my wife's desk and said, please proofread. And as I got up to go down to bed, God literally called me. He said, I want you. And I laughed. I said, I don't meet any of those qualifications. I'm an architect. So I went to bed. I got up later than my wife in the morning, obviously, and she had proofread the job description and redlined a few things on it. And before I could say anything, she said, I think God's calling you to do this. I was like, okay, this is really loud and clear. I got it, God. So I went to my vice chair, then I went to the board, and 3 days.
Just hang on, everybody. He'll be back.
Yep, I'm back. So,
Okay, so start back right when you said we got the next morning.
I got up the next morning, went out to the kitchen. My wife had proofread the job description, put a few marks on it. And before I could say anything to her, she said, I think God's
Calling you.
calling me to do this. So 3 days later, after talking to the board, in an emergency session on the board, they said, yes, we want you. We'll have you replaced in 6 weeks, but get started. We knew we were in legal trouble with the state of California if there was an audit. And so I went to work, and I finished up my architectural projects in the evenings. And the board said 6 weeks, 3 months max. A year and a half later, when they finally got a replacement for me, as I was leaving, literally carrying the box out the door, um, God said, "What are you going to do with what I just taught you?" I mean, it was just this clear voice. And I said, "I don't know what, God." And he said, "I want you to take the experience that you have just had, go to the national convention, which I had been to as an employee the year before, and put up a booth and help other rescue missions expand and create new rescue missions." So that's what I did. I went to the next convention. I put up a booth. I used blueprints. If you remember those, some of you probably don't, but some of you might remember blueprints. And used sprayed adhesive and put it on foam core and stuck up the floor plans and the elevations for the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission. And because of my sense of humor, God gave me a slogan the night before I left, and I made a little sign and I stuck it on top of my booth that said, "The Homeless Architect." And that has been my moniker ever since then. I have worked on over 90 rescue mission projects across the nation. So that is, and I do it as a paid consultant. That's my profession. That's what I do. And I feel that, I've earned my keep. So that's that's the background. And so because I have been with so many different ministries across the nation, I have such a broad scope of things that rescue missions can do, and always creating new ones if we can. But because of that broad scope, with working with so many, I come up with ideas that most rescue missions have never even thought of. And I've gotten them from other rescue missions, or God has given me a vision.
Yeah, I think all that's made possible, like you just said. It's like being in the right place, being a learner, having exposure, putting your hand to what plow is in front of you at the time, being faithful. Everything from, like you said, you're being a consultant, a paid consultant, but at one point you're also on the board. You have been an executive director, so you know this thing from inside now, which really helps you understand what you can and cannot do in lots of different settings. Which brings me to question number 2, which
Well,
is,
before we
go
leave
ahead.
that, let me fill you in on another piece.
Oh, go ahead.
So the stereotype of the executive director, and by the way, Matt McGill, our former executive director, stayed on, and we promoted him to director of ministries. That was what his gifting is in. That's where he should have been. And we had put him in an administrative position that was not appropriate for him. So it was our fault as a board that we kept him there without help for so long. So when I became the executive director, the stereotype for an executive director is a person that has compassion for the homeless people and can go down into the dining room, put my arm around some homeless guy and say, "Jesus loves you." That is not in me. That is not a gift God has given me. I don't do street ministry. That's not a gift God's given me. But I was reading the chronological Bible at the time, the 1-year chronological Bible. And I got to the story of Old Testament Joseph. What was he? He was an administrator. That was his gift.
Mm-hmm.
He saved Israel. We wouldn't have the 12 tribes if it wasn't for him. And he was an administrator. And I went, he didn't even have a church. And I said, I got it. I'm working in my gift. So that was a real eye opener for me. Work in your gift. And I was so excited to go to work every day. And I loved working there. And I loved working on all the rescue missions since. So between administration and architecture, those are my gifts. And that's what I love doing. The administration is still going rescue mission. And all the experiences that God brought together in those couple of years is what I'm using today. So there's use your gifts, find out what your gift is and work in it, and you'll be happy.
Love it. Fantastic counsel. All right, so brings us to the point of all that, to the point of how did God use all that to bring about this, he put you in a place, an occasion, there's a catalyst that got you thinking about Maui Rescue Mission. I mean, it wasn't in your mind at first. There was something else in your mind, but I'd like to hear now about that journey, that catalyst that got you thinking in that direction.
So I'm the chairman of the missions committee at our church. I believe in missions. I believe that's where Christians grow when they go on missions trips and work outside of their comfort zone, probably in their skill sets, but outside of what they normally would do, sometimes in a foreign country, but most of mine are domestic. In fact, God gave me the challenge to work on or remodel pastors' homes that couldn't afford to do it otherwise. So that's what I've been doing. I've done 5 or 6 of those projects. So my wife and I went on an excursion trip to Hawaii, 3 islands, Maui being one of them. My pastor from Santa Barbara had retired and gone back to Maui, and we had dinner with them one night. And I said, I'm looking for an opportunity to help a pastor, if he needs help on his house or whatever, I want to bring a missions team over. And he said, well, our church needs to be remodeled. We need to expand our stage because it was too small. They were expanding, and we need to take out a big post in the middle of the church so that we can video the worship service. And I said, okay. And I came back with 7 guys for 9 days to Maui and brought them back. We stayed in 2 guest houses right next door to each other. And while we were there, the woman, Michelle, that was our hostess, she found out what I do, rescue missions. And she said, we have the highest per capita homeless in America in Maui County. I was shocked, but you could see it on the streets. And so John Savage was with me. He does fundraising for rescue missions, Christian organizations, schools, all those. So he was with me on the trip. And when she found out what both of us do, she said, you need to help us. She worked on the main tourist street in Lahaina for 30 years, had a little shop there. And every morning she would help the homeless person laying on her stoop in the morning. She would bring them food or whatever they needed for the day, try and help them get them help. So she said, you need to meet some people. So the day before we left, she had set up 3 appointments, the largest landowner on West Maui who wanted to do a homeless encampment, a potential donor, and the head of the housing authority. So we went and met with them, John and I, and we started finding out that there was a huge problem, and it's the highest per capita homeless in America. It's proven. So we left. And about a week later, John calls me and he says, do you feel a calling? And I said, yeah. Oh, we finished the remodel on the church, and then we left. So I said, yes, let's go back. So we went back, and we didn't know what we were going to do except find out what services and what was being done for the homeless. So we went back, and we found out that a food organization called Feed My Sheep was doing a ministry the day after we got there. So we went to that ministry in the morning just to see who was there and what was happening. And we met a truck driver, and he said, I want to do more than just drive a truck for the homeless. I really want to be involved in the ministry. So he had a lot of connections around the island. His name is Ernie. He had a lot of connections around the island, and we were there for a week. And in that week, we went and spoke to between 30 and 40 individuals, companies, corporations, ministries, the housing authority again. We went back and started, and every time we'd go and talk to somebody and we'd say, we're here to help the homeless situation, they would go, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so. And they'd give us 2 people. So by the end of that week, we had talked to 30 or 40 people. If you've ever been to Maui, it's a small island, and we put 500 miles on the car. That's, every day we were going from one end to the other and talking to people. And so at the end of that week, we sat down on a Saturday morning, the three of us, Ernie, John, and myself, and we wrote down everything that we had found out. But who's doing what for the homeless? How are they helping them? What organizations are there? What facilities are there? And we said, what is missing? Kept looking, what is missing? And we finally went, outreach. Nobody's doing outreach. They're not going out to the beaches and bushes where the homeless are. You have to understand that the homeless on Maui do not need to come inside. The weather, 365 days a year, you can camp. And that's a real different dynamic than most places. So they have no incentive to come into a building. And the services are scattered all over the island. So if you want to go and get your ID, you have to go to the Salvation Army. And there's only 2 locations on the island. If you, whatever service you need, it's in different buildings in different places. So we said, well, how could we bring the people together while they're still out in the bushes and beaches? And we
Hey, can I
finally
stop you just for a
Sure.
second? I just want to recapture something. So going back to just to cover a little bit of ground real quick to help for the students. The catalyst was this mission trip, and then the person asking you, about your background and saying, hey, we need a mission, we need work with the homeless. And then the research, what got you thinking about the mission itself was kind of an overlapping process, it sounds like, with the research. It's like it sounds like God was grabbing at your heartstrings. He connected you with John. You guys started coming out to the island, and it was a revelatory process, meaning that you couldn't necessarily separate these two things like, oh, I'm thinking about a rescue mission and, oh, I'm doing research. It sounds like it was both happening at the same time. And the more you learned, the more you had this inclination that you could head off in this direction. And that's what got the solution, which is, it sounds like that's where we're at right now, is how you began to fashion the solution. Do I have that right? I'm just going to hang on here a second. He's got some latency going on here. Wait for his connection to catch up. Okay, go ahead. I can't hear you.
Yes. We're good? Okay. So yes, that's how we came to a solution. We looked at all of the facts and started thinking, me as an architect, where are we going to build the building? And then it transformed into, where are we not going to build the building? How are we going to reach out to the whole island and go out to where the homeless are? And nobody was doing outreach. So we said, that's what is needed. Now, how do we get them to come? What can we incentivize them with to come to our ministry? And what would our ministry look like? And that's when we said, well, they all need showers. There are public showers on every beach, but they're cold and you have to stand there in your clothes and wash yourself. And we said, if we did something that was really nice and entice them to come to a warm shower in a private shower compartment, that would probably bring people. But also laundry. It's $9 a load to wash laundry on Maui in the public laundromats. And we said, if we have a laundry, we get to talk to them for an hour to an hour and a half, because they can't leave when their stuff's in the laundry. And that became the catalyst. The focus of our ministry is when they're sitting there and they don't have anything to do, we get to talk to them about Christ. We get to talk to them about their life. We get to talk to them about how we can help. And so that was the premise to start the ministry. And so we sistered up next to a feeding program every place we went, because there was feeding programs all over the island. You'll never go hungry on Maui if you're homeless, because there's so many feeding programs. So people were feeding them, and now we come with a shower and the laundry. And I'll give you an example of Abel, who was our outreach coordinator at the time. I came to the ministry down in Kihei, and he was sitting there talking to 3 homeless guys, 2 of which had already done their laundry, but were sitting there talking to him. The third guy was about to, or his laundry was in the washing machine, and they were talking. And so I walked up behind him, and so the homeless guy says, "So God does make mistakes." That was the conversation that I heard. And then Abel said, instead of trying to answer it, Abel said, "Well, why do you say that?" And he said, "Well, obviously he made a mistake because he had to create the flood and kill everybody except for Noah and his family." And Abel was able to then say, "No, it was human. It was the human being who became corrupt." And you know the rest of the story. So that's for homeless people. And the other 2 homeless people defended that point of view, and were all in favor of the Bible and that story. So where was I? Sorry, I got distracted.
No, this is great. We were talking about the solution, and they didn't have showers. They didn't have a laundry facility, and you had sistered up with a feeding program.
So Abel was there by himself. He was our only employee at the time. A woman came to an outreach at the park down by the airport, and he asked her to fill out a little form so she could get something. And she said,
"You're up."
So when this woman came to the outreach, and Abel asked her to fill out a form, and she says, "I can't." He thought, well, you know, is she illiterate or what? And he finally asked why, and she says, "I don't have any glasses, I can't see." He went, "Oh, we can fix that. Come back next week." He filled out the form for her, but she came back the next week, and he got a organization that does glasses for free to come set up a table, and she got her eyes tested and got glasses, reading glasses, you know, the typical ones you can buy in a drugstore, the magnifiers. She left the ministry, went to the beach, and 11 more people came and got glasses that day. That was the start of the growing of the ministry from just showers and laundry to this new ministry. And now we have 11 different agencies that come to the field with us, and everything. It's a one-stop shop. And they can come in, it's a no barrier. They can come in, they can get all the services they need from one place. And it's a really interesting, you'll see in the article that you have on Maui Rescue Mission, it's kind of a festival feeling. There's the trailer with the laundry and the shower in it, shower, sink, and toilet. But there are 9 pop-ups on either side of it, all around it. And different agencies are in each of those pop-ups. Some are Christian, some are secular, some are governmental. It's the first time ever on Maui that a field nurse has gone to the field on a regular basis and done wound care in the field. And that helps the emergency room and the doctor's offices when the homeless don't have to go in because their foot is infected. And she gives out new socks. So, you know, we are at the ground level. Once you get a person feeling well and doing well and excited about coming back to it really is like a festival every time we go out to the outreach. The homeless come, they are laughing, they're having a good time, they're getting good food. We have a chef that cooks on one of our outreaches. It's just unbelievable how excited they are to come to that ministry. We have a chaplain that has a pop-up there, and he sits and talks with anybody that wants to talk. And some of the organizations are Christian organizations, and some are secular, and some are governmental. We don't care. We're helping the homeless get 1, 2, 3 steps up. So you can really talk to a person about Christ in a more effective way when they don't have physical problems, when they are on their meds. We have the mental health organization comes to the field and makes sure that all the people that will take their meds will take them, and that they have a supply of them. And every week they go and check on them. So we have 2 outreach workers, in one on the end of the island on the west end, one on the rest of the island, that go out. They're employees of ours. They go out every day of the week, 5 days a week, and they go to the homeless encampments. They know all the homeless people. They make sure that the person that's supposed to be on meds is on their meds, and that they haven't run out or they haven't given them away or whatever. And those outreach workers are the really the core of why we are so successful, because they're going out to the bushes and beaches and talking to the homeless on a daily basis. They know them by first name. So when they show up, it's hi Joe, hi Cynthia, and the homeless people really feel cared for.
If you could talk to Brian from the 1980s, coming into the role of executive director, having to, I guess, challenge the paradigm. Whoops, sorry, that was my dog moving my desk. You're kind of like Don Quixote, right? Tilting at windmills kind of thing. What have you learned in that journey? I mean, a couple of your key takeaways between now and then.
I've learned to be open to God's calling. It's I've always gone to church. I've been a Christian since I was in college, and I just am open to God's calling, whatever it is. When I started, we moved 13 years ago to this new rural community, and there was a spinoff church from our church in Santa Barbara, and we went the first Sunday, and we knew some people there, and about the 3rd week, I asked the pastor, Rick, I said, hey, do you have a missions committee? And he says, no, we don't have one yet. We're a new church. I said, oh, okay. So again, a couple weeks later, I asked him, is there a missions committee? He says, no. And finally, the 3rd time I asked him, he says, so when are you going to start the missions committee?
Love it.
So that type of thing, if you're open, you ask the questions, and then God calls you to do it. And so that's what I have learned, is I listen for what God's calling me to do. I don't turn on the radio when I drive. I don't listen to music. Don't listen to news, maybe a little bit, but what I do is I pray and I say, God, talk to me. I drive. God, talk to me. And he does. He'll inspire me, whether it's in my architecture work and houses I'm doing, or whether it's ministry work. He inspires me and I go, oh, thank you, God. I mean, it's just these thoughts come to my mind, and I'm just blown away by how faithful he is to give me guidance.
How has your view of let me restate the question. In what ways has your view of ministry maybe not changed so much between now and then, but how is it adapted? Maybe. I'm not quite sure how to word it. Maybe your paradigm, maybe it's your paradigm. How's your paradigm of ministry to the homeless changed over that period of time?
Well, because I still work with so many rescue missions across the nation, my paradigm is, it's not just a ministry, it's a calling. And so I didn't realize that in the beginning, I didn't realize it was a calling, and that when God calls me to work in my gifts, it is an exciting day, an exciting year. And so the paradigm in the past was, I went to church. I went to church. I must be a Christian. I went to church. And now it's on a daily basis. I say, God, how are you going to use me today? My wife and I do Bible study in the morning before we start our day. And I normally end it with, God, how are you going to use us today? And it's as opposed to, well, I went to church on Sunday and I went to Wednesday Bible study, and I went to church on Sunday and I went to Bible study. It's a lot different when you are living for God's calling.
Amen. That's outstanding. What a great way to close this up. Let's bring this in for a landing. Students, you'll be talking here to Brian live shortly. And hopefully during this last 40 minutes or so, you've allowed the Holy Spirit to stop and cause you to write some things down about what Brian has been speaking about. Maybe it's about you personally. He said some fantastic, challenging kinds of things for us personally, professionally, ministry-wise, vocationally. Things you'd like to know more about, maybe. And as you've interacted with the materials, the article that you read in Instigate, and then what you've read in Maui Mission, I encourage you to go out to the website, take a look at the website as well. And Brian, do you have any closing thoughts or things you'd like to share with them prior to them meeting you here in a little while?
Yes. I've learned to sit quietly when I'm driving, especially, and listen for God. In the evening, I go outside to have dinner. My wife is working late usually, and so I go out and sit outside, and I don't have my phone. I don't have reading material. I eat dinner and I listen. And in today's society, everybody is so connected to everything in every way. Sometimes you just have to disconnect. And that's an old cliche, set your phone aside for 10 minutes or whatever. I don't have a time limit. It's whatever. And God speaks to me. I'll just be sitting there and thinking, what are you going to talk to me about today, God? And all of a sudden in my mind, it goes, oh, you need to think about this. You need to do this. And if I was busy using my phone and busy on the computer, I don't have time to think. I don't have time to be receptive to what God is going to bring to me that day.
Super. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your time, and we'll be talking with the students here in just a little while.